live in a very small apartment in Atlanta, Georgia. My father worked in the gold-domed Capitol building with the state entomologist of Georgia. I have a series of letters that my mother wrote at that time, and from those letters I could tell that their life was so happy and peaceful. They were members of North Avenue Presbyterian Church, where they were in the Young Married Sunday School class. They had many friends and social engagements. In June of 1940, my brother was born. And I know from knowing my parents for so many years that they loved babies. And so I know he was such a blessing, in addition to all the other blessings they had at that time. In fact, he was the pièce de résistance of their lives. I'm going to mention a date, and if you know what happened on that date, I want you to raise your hand. December 7th, 1941. Some of you know that that is the date that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. The next day, the United States declared war against Japan and was catapulted into World War II. My mother was 5 months pregnant with me, and that day changed all of our lives forever. In addition to being an entomologist, my father was in the Army Reserves. So as soon as war was declared, the reserves were called up to active duty, and this idyllic life they led was shattered. My father was sent to Fort Benning, which is an Army post in Columbus, Georgia. And so when I was born, on a Wednesday, April 22nd, 1942, he was not able to come home to see me until that weekend. He was sent to other Army bases in Arkansas and Oregon. Now, with all of these soldiers being sent all over the country, there was not enough housing. And so patriotic citizens were encouraged to rent out part of their homes to soldiers. At one time, my parents, with 2 babies, had 1 room in a private home. They had kitchen privileges and bathroom privileges in that home. Those were the days of cloth diapers. And my mother washed the diapers of 2 babies by hand in the bathtub in that rented place. My mother had 2 brothers. My father was eventually sent to England and France. He was in the Army Infantry. My mother's 2 brothers, one of them was named Edward, and he requested that they name me Edwinna after him. So that's how I got my name. But he was in the Navy, and he had a desk job in Miami, Florida. The other brother was in the Air Force and was flying missions in the Pacific. So the family was so anxious about my father in the infantry, my uncle in the Pacific, and they thought that the uncle I was named for, who his nickname was Mac, so I always knew him as Uncle Mac. And so here he is in a desk job in Miami. But in 1944, Uncle Mac was flying on a commercial plane from Miami to Jacksonville, and another plane collided with his over the St. Johns River, and everyone was killed. So, my life was filled, the world that I was born into was filled with uncertainty, separation, hardship, and sorrow. I never knew the person I was named for, and my father was not present in those early years of my life. So every year when Pearl Harbor comes around, to me it means the day that my life changed forever. Mr. Toastmaster.